Hi everyone, it's Shea. Welcome to or back to my channel. If you haven't been to my channel before, I make all kinds of videos on productivity and motivation, starting an online business, learning a new language, so a lot of different topics, but all things that I'm very interested in and interested in teaching all of you. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the different resources that I've been using to learn vocabulary in a new language. I'll start off with some resources and tools that I use, and then at the end, I'll just provide a few extra tips and tricks about extra ways you can incorporate learning vocabulary into your study routine. First off, obviously, learning vocabulary in a new language is super important, but it's not the only thing that you should focus on. It's said that knowing around the most common 1,000 to 3,000 words of a language helps you be conversational, and knowing around 2,000 words or more helps you understand about 90% of the spoken language. But with that being said, even if you can understand 90% of the words, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll understand them when they're put into context. So that's why you still need grammar, learning verb conjugations, and all the other pieces of the puzzle when learning a new language. It's not like you can just study and memorize 2,000 words and you'll know how to speak a new language. Unfortunately, there's no fast, quick hack to learn a new language, but vocab is super important, so I wanted to share with you how I've been learning vocabulary and some different ways that you can incorporate new and exciting vocabulary into your language learning routine. The first tool that I've been using that I really enjoy is called Toucan, and it's a free Chrome browser extension that helps you learn a new language while you browse the internet. So this video is actually sponsored by them, so thank you so much. The team reached out to me and they've been following my language learning journey and told me about their product, and when I downloaded it, it was super cool and I was like, every language learner needs to try this. You can download it by going to www.jointoucan.com, and right now they have Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, and German, but they have a lot more languages coming soon. So as you browse the internet or search for things on Google, read through blog posts, or even use social media, certain words will appear translated on the page. And it's really helpful because you can understand the meanings of words in the context of the sentence. So your brain will be reading a sentence in English, and maybe, for me, Italian words will pop up. And it's really crazy because I feel like my brain just kind of fills in the English meaning of the word. So it helps me realize like, oh, that's what that word means. You also have the option to change your difficulty settings, or if there's websites that you don't really want it to be working on, you can turn it off. And they also have audio pronunciation, so you can hover over the audio symbol and hear how a word is pronounced. They also have cool features where you can track your progress report and see how many new words you've been exposed to or learning. And they have a ton of cool plans for the future of Toucan that will be really exciting. So I definitely recommend heading over to jointoucan.com and downloading it. It's free. All you have to do is add it to your browser, and it really helps solidify the meaning because I see the words in context of whatever I'm reading, but also just the repetition helps me study it as I work or as I'm just browsing the internet. I think the other great thing about Toucan is that, maybe there's days where I don't really feel like studying, or I kind of fallen behind on my study schedule, which happens a lot because work is very busy for me. And it's kind of nice because if I haven't been able to read or study or do my grammar exercises, I'm still able to be studying my Italian by just working, reading blog posts, reading articles on the internet. So it's a really nice way to be learning without even realizing it. And make sure to keep checking back because I know they add new languages all the time. So if the language you're learning isn't listed yet, definitely stay tuned. And the next tool that I want to talk about is Quizlet. And I'm sure many of you have probably already heard of Quizlet because it's a very popular flashcard program, but I absolutely love Quizlet. I've been using it since I was in school. And in my last video, I talked about how I have this running master list of vocabulary words from the book that I'm reading. So if you want to check out my reading routine for Italian, definitely be sure to check that out after this video. Basically on Quizlet, I have a bunch of different lists of vocabulary. Originally, I was thinking like, oh, I'll just make one giant master list and study that. But I think it's better to split up your different flashcard sets. So I have a master vocabulary list of all the words or phrases that I learned from reading. And then I have another one that's like general stuff like numbers, weather, days of the week, months, stuff like that. So if you use Quizlet, I highly recommend splitting up your vocabulary list into different flashcard sets. And then one of my favorite features to use on Quizlet is the write feature. It basically just has you write out the meaning of the words that you see, and you can decide whether you want it to be Italian to English or English to Italian or whatever language you're learning. And you can even shuffle them. There's a lot of different settings you can try, but I personally really like this feature because I find that I learn words a lot faster and a lot better. Like I can retain the meanings a lot better if I'm actually writing out the meaning of a word versus like just going through the flashcards, seeing the answer. I feel like I have to go through the set so many times if I just go back and forth flipping the flashcards versus if I'm like writing it out. Also, flashcards are really good because it's just something you can incorporate into your day for 10 to 15 minutes. You can decide, okay, every morning I'm going to wake up and run through 20 flashcards, or I'm going to wake up and do 15 minutes of flashcard reviews. It doesn't have to be long, and it's also something you can just space out throughout the day if you have little breaks here and there, because the repetition really does make a difference. Like I mentioned in my past reading video, you can also learn vocabulary while you read and while you watch TV shows or movies. While I don't suggest pausing every time there's a word you don't understand, because then you'll probably be pausing, starting a lot. If you hear words or phrases that appear a lot, maybe try just looking those up, or maybe eventually you can kind of guess their meaning through context of whatever's happening in the show or the book. And then for reading, like I mentioned in my past video, I usually try to read a chapter all the way through, and even if there's words that I don't understand, I just kind of like try to figure out what's happening in the chapter, and then I will go back a second time and take a closer look at words that I really don't understand. If there's some words that I can kind of figure out the meaning, I don't take down every single translation, but if there's a word that I see that I'm like, wow, I have never seen this before and I can't figure it out, then I'll write that in my notebook and put it into my Quizlet flashcard set. Some show or TV recommendations for Italian. I do get a lot of comments on that. So for me personally, I really liked the show Baby on Netflix. There's also a show called Summertime on Netflix that I ended up really liking. In the beginning, I was unsure, but I ended up liking it. And then there's also Scam Italia. That is not on Netflix for the US. But I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix for some other countries. But if you just search Scam Italia full episodes, I think there's it's like Tim Vision or something. I think it's like an Italian network that has all the episodes. But I like all these shows because they're all really good for like teens or young adults, and it's really good to hear just like common phrases, and you can pick up like how people speak and get pronunciation and intonation and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely recommend those shows. Also, as far as movies, there's a few movies on Netflix in Italian for the US. I watched this movie called Slam, and it was pretty good. It was kind of weird, but it was pretty good, and I actually could understand almost all of that movie, so that was pretty encouraging. Then there's a movie that I'm watching right now that I'm working through called Under the Riccione Sun. But anyway, so you can look that up and watch those. I'll watch episodes of Peppa Pig in Italian on YouTube. You can find just like a ton of episodes in Italian on YouTube, so just search that. My next tip is to keep a designated vocabulary notebook. So when I first started studying, I just had one notebook that I wrote a bunch of my language studying stuff in. And I found that I was really unorganized when I wanted to return to a lesson or something that I had learned. So what I ended up doing was making a few different vocabulary notebooks. Let me grab my vocabulary notebook so I can show you. So this is my vocabulary notebook, and I labeled it. And when you first open it up, I have just some basic things like cooking related, colors, describing food, adverbs, months, weather, that kind of stuff. And then later on, I have some common phrases, and then my list from the book that I'm reading. So I just keep everything vocabulary related in here, and it's really helpful to be able to review, to just take this out if I don't feel like pulling up my flashcards or something. So yeah, I highly recommend you keep a designated vocabulary notebook only for the words that you're learning. And then finally, just a last little tip that I've been using that I find really helpful is to say vocabulary words in your head. So let me explain. For example, when I'm making dinner at night, I will be saying vocabulary words in my head of utensils that I'm using or foods that I'm cooking, and basically just saying sentences in my head like I'm cooking pasta for dinner, or just talking like in the present tense of what I'm doing. And I don't have to say this out loud, or maybe like your roommates or family will think that you are actually psycho, but you can say it in your head, because I feel like making that connection in your head to something you're actually holding in your hand and using just kind of helps solidify the meaning in your mind. And maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it's helpful, because I feel like now when I am cooking or doing something, I feel like I'm able to think of how to say those sentences a lot faster because I practice them in my head while I'm cooking or doing like my daily routine. So yeah, that's a interesting little tip that I think could be helpful. Let me just recap everything that we went over in this video. First off, go on over to jointoucan.com and download the free Chrome extension to help learn new vocabulary while you are just browsing the internet. Make sure to start creating Quizlet flashcard sets to start studying periodically throughout the day, and grab a new notebook to start specifically for your vocabulary terms that you're learning. And like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, vocabulary is a super important part to learn in a new language, because obviously if you didn't know the words, you wouldn't be able to speak a new language. But you definitely want to still maintain a balance of grammar, verb conjugations, word order, all that kind of extra stuff that goes along with learning a new language. So you still need to have a balance of grammar and vocabulary. So I feel like vocabulary is something you can kind of do on the side or in the background, but I wouldn't devote hours, of your study routine to learning vocabulary. I feel like it's something that's kind of acquired as you read or as you learn new grammar. So those are all my tips for learning vocabulary in a new language. Thanks again for watching my videos. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video if you found it helpful and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. Thanks again. I'll see you next time. Bye.